A severe divergence in ransomware targeting emerged in late March 2026. The victims caught in the crosshairs no longer matched the sophistication of the weapons being deployed against them. The demographics of recent victims are heavily skewed. Nearly 80% are resource-constrained small businesses, a distinct upward surge. Yet they are actively targeted by enterprise-grade tradecraft, Nuka-compiled payloads bypassing macOS heuristics, second-stage fetches over the Solana blockchain, and initial loaders buried under AI-generated obfuscation. Two macro trends are driving this landscape. First, advanced exploits have become heavily commoditized. Nation-state-level tools that used to require dedicated development teams are now packaged, leaked, and deployed automatically at scale by opportunistic cybercriminal groups. Second, the most capable adversaries are abandoning perimeter breaches entirely. Instead, they utilize credential theft and social engineering to blend seamlessly into cloud identity systems. Standard enterprise security models are buckling under this pressure. They lack the behavioral monitoring required to stop the stealthy identity pivots at the top, and they lack the agility to patch against the automated, democratized exploits overwhelming the bottom. Fast-moving double extortion campaigns maintained intense pressure throughout late March, specifically zeroing in on the manufacturing sector. This bar chart isolates the groups driving that volume. Keeling commands the largest single share of the market at over 16%, continuing its heavy disruption of manufacturing and logistics. Akira maintains a tight grip on mid-market enterprises right behind them. These groups maintain such high volume because their initial access operations are no longer manual. They rely on automated, highly evasive loaders that bypass initial security checks with ease. The Windows-focused malware known as DeepLoad illustrates exactly how this initial access mechanism functions. It reaches the user through click-fix social engineering, tricking them into executing what appears to be a legitimate PowerShell command. DeepLoad generates massive volumes of junk code to exhaust standard security scanners. Peel away those layers and the true functionality activates. DeepLoad runs filelessly in memory, bypassing disk scans to inject payloads directly into trusted processes like lockapphost.exe. To maintain access, it creates a continuous loop through Windows management instrumentation, anchoring the malware to the operating system's core. Because this WMI persistence mechanism survives system resets and standard cleanup protocols, DeepLoad frequently reinfects networks days after an IT team believes they have sanitized the environment. From this entrenched position, it deploys a malicious browser extension to intercept credentials and siphon cryptocurrency wallet data in real time. The reliance on AI-layered obfuscation and memory-only execution bypasses signature-based defenses entirely. Small businesses, which rarely employ deep behavioral memory monitoring, are systematically exposed to this exact loader, driving their disproportionate victimization rates. While loaders assault the endpoints, the network perimeter itself is facing a distinct crisis. Late March saw a barrage of critical edge vulnerabilities actively exploited in the wild. Looking at this vulnerability mapping, we see high-impact remote code execution flaws being abused across major enterprise infrastructure, including Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center, Citrix NetScaler, and F5 Big IP. The gap between a vulnerability disclosure and active exploitation is now measured in hours. Organizations operating these edge devices are forced onto emergency patching timelines simply to keep ransomware actors out of their internal networks. This rapid weaponization extends directly to the mobile edge. The Darksword exploit kit, currently targeting iOS environments, represents one of the most dangerous mobile threats in circulation. Darksword strings together 6 distinct vulnerabilities, including 0 days, to fully compromise iOS 18.4 through 18.7. Visiting a malicious web page triggers a silent device takeover, extracting sensitive credentials before instantly wiping all traces of its presence. This level of operational security is rarely seen in commodity malware. Darksword was originally engineered as a highly targeted surveillance tool, deployed exclusively by state-aligned operations and commercial spyware vendors. That exclusivity vanished when the tool's complete source code was leaked onto GitHub, instantly placing it in the hands of global threat actors. The GitHub leak transformed a precision espionage tool into a widespread opportunistic weapon, now deployed across multiple regions. While ransomware operators make noise at the edge, advanced persistent threats like UNC1069 and APT36 operate with extreme quiet precision. They are moving further upstream to compromise networks before security tools are even deployed. The Glassworm campaign demonstrates exactly how these actors manipulate the software supply chain. Rather than attacking an enterprise directly, Glassworm targets the developers building the enterprise's code. Glassworm injects invisible Unicode characters into NPM, GitHub, and VS Code repositories, sitting undetected in legitimate code. To retrieve its malware, it fetches second-stage payloads via decentralized Solana blockchain transactions, completely bypassing traditional monitors looking for centralized command and control servers. This supply chain pipeline has successfully deployed info stealers and remote access modules across hundreds of repositories, efficiently harvesting SSH keys and developer cloud tokens. We see this exact focus on developer machines carrying over into macOS environments, driven primarily by the Infinity Stealer campaign. Like Deepload, Infinity Stealer relies on click-fix lures, often disguised as Cloudflare verifications, to trick users into pasting commands into their terminal. The method of payload construction distinguishes this campaign from standard macOS stats. The threat actors write the payload in standard Python, but they compile it using Nuka. This process translates the Python into C code and compiles it directly into a hardened, native Mach-O binary file. By outputting a native executable rather than a standard script, the resulting malware becomes significantly harder for traditional macOS heuristics to reverse engineer or accurately flag as malicious. Once running natively, Infinity Stealer strips browser credentials, keychain entries, and developer secrets, exfiltrating the entire package via a standard HTTP post request. Adversaries are systematically attacking code repositories and developer endpoints. By poisoning the supply chain and utilizing bespoke compilation methods, they bypass enterprise security architecture entirely. Relying on the network edge as a primary defense is a failing strategy. Between automated edge exploits, supply chain poisoning, and identity-based stealth, attackers are reliably bypassing the perimeter. The roadkill implant illustrates how attackers operate in this post-perimeter environment. This lightweight Node.js implant focuses exclusively on establishing quiet, long-term lateral movement rather than bulk data exfiltration. Once compromised, RoadK1 establishes a thin, outbound WebSocket tunnel connecting to the attacker's infrastructure. Initiating from the inside out, bypasses standard inbound firewalls. Through this single tunnel, operators open multiplexed channels, pivoting deeper into segmented networks, while perfectly mimicking normal web traffic. Signature-based endpoint detection fails against this because the traffic looks legitimate. Finding implants like RoadK1 requires dedicated, post-compromise behavioral hunting to identify the anomalous access patterns. This data dictates two immediate defensive priorities. First, emergency timeline patching is mandatory for all internet-facing applications, edge devices, and SSO endpoints. The exploitation window is simply too narrow to delay. Second, environments require aggressive identity hardening. Attackers are prioritizing valid credentials. Restricting exposure and locking down identity access management limits the damage they can do once inside. The modern threat landscape is defined by democratized exploits at the edge and stealthy persistence on the inside. Survival requires moving beyond reactive perimeter defense and adopting proactive, behavioral hunting across the entire enterprise.